is referred to the House Committee.
Secretary for Health. President, I move the second reading of the Inland Revenue Amendment Tax Deductions for Assisted Reproductive Service Expenses Bill 2024. Hong Kong is facing the challenges of a low birth rate and an aging population. In the 2023 policy address, a series of measures are announced to create an environment conducive to childbearing and promote fertility. This is to alleviate the problem of aging population. For couples who have difficulties in conceiving, they can make use of AR services to fulfill their wish to have a child. At present, there is a strong demand for AR services provided in the public sector. Generally, members of the public have to wait for 8 months to a year before getting IVF treatments. For AR services provided in the private sector, the cost is high, and this is discouraging. As such, two measures are proposed in the 2023 policy address to support the public in need. First, the Hospital Authority will, from year 2024-25 to 2028-29, gradually increase the AR service quota for IVF treatment from 1,100 to 1,800 treatment cycles per year, which represents an increase of more than 60%. This is to shorten the waiting time for public AR services. In parallel, starting from the year of assessment 2024-25, the government will provide tax deduction for expenses on AR services under salaries tax and personal assessment. It is hoped that by easing the financial burden from the relevant expenses, couples with fertility issues will be encouraged to seek medical assistance and try AR services. This proposed amendment to the Inland Revenue Ordinance is to provide for tax deduction for AR service expenses. We propose to set the scope of the scheme based on the AR services permitted under the existing regulatory regime of the Human Reproductive Technology Ordinance to help those who wish to have children immediately but need to receive AR services for medical reasons. Taxpayers who may benefit from the tax deduction include the following. 1. Infertile couples or persons under specified circumstances. That is, persons who have to select the sex of an embryo for the purpose of avoiding a sex-linked genetic disease as stated in the Human Reproductive Technology Ordinance, or singletons who have had their gametes or embryos placed in a female body before the end of their marriage but continue with the procedure after the end of the marriage. And 2. Cancer patients or any other patients who may be rendered infertile as a result of chemotherapy, radiotherapy, surgery, or other medical treatment. In other words, those who need AR services for medical reasons can benefit from the tax deduction. The medical reasons refer to infertility or impending infertility due to a particular cause. The causes of infertility are numerous and may involve either the male or the female. Given the current trend of delayed marriage and childbearing, we may see a higher rate of infertility, which increases with a woman's age. For infertile couples, we can help them fulfill their wish to have a child through AR services. And such services are available to those who are eligible for the tax deduction. For those who opt for AR services for non-medical reasons, that is, those who do not have infertility problems, the expenses they bear on gamete freezing services will not be tax deductible. In recent years, a small number of young women have chosen to freeze their gametes for future use. This may delay their childbearing plans. They may even miss the prime reproductive years. As a matter of fact, assisted reproduction cannot completely reverse the biological age limit for women. According to the 2023 data from the Council on Human Reproductive Technology, for women aged between 26 and 30 who underwent a fresh embryo transfer through the IVF method, the success rate of pregnancy is about 50%. It is 36% for women aged between 31 and 35. about 20% for women aged between 36 and 40, and less than 10% for women aged 40 to 45. This shows that the fertility of women declines rapidly with age, and this remains the case even with frozen gametes or embryos. Moreover, many people overlook the risks of medical procedures required for freezing gametes or underestimate the risks associated with advanced maternal age. Such risks may be borne by both mothers and their fetuses. Also, we notice that the utilization rate of frozen eggs is extremely low, as at the end of 2023, 20,375 eggs have been stored in licensed centers in Hong Kong. In year 2023 alone, 5,983 eggs were stored. However, during the year, only 54 frozen thawed embryos were used for fresh embryo transfers. That means for every 1,000 stored eggs, only 2.6 were used each year, and only 7 of these embryo transfers yielded ongoing pregnancies. This is an extremely low success rate. From the above figures, we see that it's not cost-effective to include gamete freezing services in the tax deduction regime, nor is it conducive to boosting the fertility rate. Such services aren't in line with the policy intent of this tax deduction measure. While people are free to make their life plans by choosing to freeze their gametes without medical reasons, as a matter of policy, we do not encourage risky and invasive medical procedures without medical reasons, which may cause people to delay their childbearing plans and miss their prime reproductive years. Therefore, people who opt for gamete freezing services will not be eligible for the tax deduction. The bill will set out the scope of qualifying AR services. Such services include reproductive technology procedures as defined under Section 2(1) of the Human Reproductive Technology Ordinance, and the handling, storing, and disposing of gametes or embryo used or intended to be used in connection with an RT procedure pursuant to an artificial insemination by husband license, a treatment license, or a storage license issued by the Council on Human Reproductive Technology. These services should be provided, directed, or referred by a physician who is clinically responsible for and directly related to the reproductive technology procedure. Expenses related to medication, consultation fees, hormonal tests, lab fees, inpatient charges, and operation fees will all be covered. The deduction is in line with the general tax deduction rules under the Inland Revenue Ordinance. Taxpayers are entitled to a deduction in respect of expenses incurred by the taxpayer himself or herself, his or her spouse residing with the taxpayer, or paid jointly by the taxpayer for the qualifying services. The deduction ceiling for a year of assessment is $100,000. For a married person, the maximum amount of deductible expenses is $100,000 for him or her, or his or her spouse, or both of them. The expenses paid in the year of assessment is allowable for deduction in the year of assessment instead of the year in which the services are received. To facilitate taxpayers in claiming tax deduction, the government will provide a standard form of proof for qualifying service expenses after the passage of the bill. The proof should be signed by the licensed center's medical practitioner, who holds clinical responsibility of the relevant reproductive technology procedure, certifying that the expenses paid are for the qualifying AR services. The Inland Revenue Department may request the taxpayers to provide the proof in support of the deductions claimed. In March this year, the Health Bureau consulted the Legislative Council panel on health services on the legislative framework of the bill and obtained the panel's support. The government will fully cooperate with the LegCo in its scrutiny work. We hope members will support the passage of the bill so that we can remove the obstacles for infertile couples and help them fulfill their wish to give birth to their own children and form a family. I so submit. Thank you, Deputy President. I now propose the question to you that the aforesaid bill be read the second time. In accordance with the rules of procedure, the second reading debate is adjourned and the bill is referred to the House Committee.